Good morning. Happy Monday. Welcome to the 31st episode of Coffee Talk Live. This is the show where my guests and I explore what it means to live a sustainable, healthy lifestyle as women, as mothers, for ourselves in the home and in the community. I'm your host, Connie Pastorius, owner of Pastorius Fitness, which is online coaching for busy moms who are ready to get stronger, gain energy, and reclaim their lives. I'm also the showrunner and woman in charge here at Strong as a Mother, Happy and Healthy Living, which is the village for moms to learn how to live happy and healthy lives while raising happy and healthy babies. Today's topic, we are going to discuss getting into the great outdoors without it being a great pain in the butt with our kids. So if you're watching, drop me a good morning. Let us know where you're watching from. If you're catching the replay, please do the same too. You can drop a number 2 in the comments if you're catching the replay, or a 1 if you're watching live. Either way, I want to hear your voice in this conversation. So if you have questions or if you want to contribute, I can see your comments in real time and we can talk about all of what it takes to live a happy life as a mom. So having said that, I'm really excited for today's guest because she is also a mom. She's an online coach just like me, and she knows, I think, just about all it takes to get your kids into the great outdoors and have fun hiking. This is something I don't know anything about, and I am so looking forward to this chat. So without further ado, please welcome my guest today, Coach Tiffany Heath. Good morning, Tiffany.
Good morning, Connie. How are you?
I'm so good, and I am so grateful for you coming in. It is 8 a.m. where you're at, correct?
Yes.
Oh, the mountains. That's mountain time, right? Or central?
Yeah, it is. It's Mountain Standard Time. So I guess perfect hiking mountains.
Yeah. I'm in Pennsylvania right now, and there's mountains all around me. But I'm such a new person, a newcomer to this idea of hiking that this is going to be a real eye-opening experience, because especially since I live in New York City, one of people's favorite things to do is to escape the city. There's a couple mountains nearby, but I don't know what the first thing to do is to even go hiking myself. So that's why this conversation is going to be so great, because I feel like I'm not the only person wondering, what kind of shoes do I bring? Should I have a backpack for my kid? Should I put my kid in the backpack? Are they going to be bored? Should I bring snacks? So
Right.
I want to get right into this. It's going to be really fun. But before we get into the conversation, I love talking about what's in the cup today, Tiffany.
So I'm drinking some red raspberry leaf tea, and I like to do the loose leaf, tea. That way I think it tastes better. But yeah, that's kind of one of my favorites. It's not quite fall yet, obviously, but the temps where I live at least have gotten a little cooler in the morning. So I kind of like to have, my hot tea in the mornings, and this is one of my favorites. So
yeah, we were just talking about this before we came on live, because I've heard red raspberry leaf as a woman's tea, which we're not even going into what I feel about being called that. But as I dug a little bit deeper, I saw it's super high in antioxidants and vitamins and minerals, and I think that's a really cool thing to have in your cup first thing in the morning. I'm kind of jealous.
Yeah.
I don't know. I at this point I don't know what to put in my cup that isn't coffee.
Yeah.
What does that tea taste like if all I really know is the taste of black tea or green tea?
Yeah, I'm definitely not a tea connoisseur, but it has a hint of raspberry, and I don't know, I just think I'm terrible when it comes to describing the taste. I don't add anything to it as far as sweetener goes. I just add a little bit of the, unsweetened almond coconut milk and to the hot tea. And I think, I think it's maybe a little bit less strong, than like your black tea or your green tea. I think it tastes good. Like it doesn't, yeah, I don't think it's an acquired taste by any means. So yeah.
I'm gonna have to give it a try, especially
Yeah.
since my daughter loves tea. She also loves coffee, but I have to like stop giving her coffee because
Yes.
I didn't like coffee growing up. My dad always tried to get me to taste his, but it was like loaded with sugar and cream, and
Yeah.
I thought it was awful. But I was like, oh, taste my coffee, Remy. And then she's like, oh,
Yes.
I like that, and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Hang on a second. So she was drinking tea this morning with me, but I love hearing that there's really great herbal options to give her
Yeah,
too, so she still enjoys the experience and the
definitely.
bonding thing. So, anyways, yeah, I'm gonna check out that red raspberry leaf tea because
Yeah.
you're really selling me on it.
Well, hey, there you it's
Um,
good.
so let's get into this. Let's talk about where you live,
Okay.
how old your kids are, and how long you've been into hiking, if this was a lifelong thing or
Yeah.
recently. Tell us your story.
Well, I live in Utah and I'm originally from California and but it's funny for me to even say that because I've been in Utah since, oh goodness, 1995. Yeah. So it's been a long time and I don't think I ever want to leave. We are so lucky to live so close to the mountains. Like I could literally drive 15-20 minutes and there's a mountains, there's a canyon kind of behind my house, 20 minutes away, but it's really close. So I'm spoiled that way, and that I don't have to drive long distances to get to the mountains. And I have two kids. I have a 16-year-old son and then a 13-year-old daughter, so they're definitely older and makes hiking easier if they even choose to go with me. They used to, we used to try to do things a little bit when they were younger, but not as much. So I guess that brings me into, just my hiking background or story, because I didn't always, hike. And in fact, I enjoyed it and I do hikes here and there. When my kids were younger, we definitely, go on adventures and camping every now and then, but it's not something that I did like on a regular basis. And so I guess it was back in like 2013. Yeah, my husband and I were driving on that Interstate 15, and you can see one of Utah's kind of most iconic mountain ranges, and there's Mount Timpanogos. And that's one of the more, popular hikes in the Wasatch Range. And he had actually hiked it before, and he was totally kidding. It was our anniversary or getting close to our anniversary. And he was totally kidding. And he said, we should hike to the top of, Timpanogos for our anniversary, not expecting me to say, oh yeah, we totally should do it. So it's just kind of funny how it all came about. But when he said that, I was like, yeah, because he had actually hiked to the summit, which is, it's like 11,000 something. It's not like a small, easy hike, but he had done that when I was pregnant with my son, when I was like 8 months pregnant. So I obviously couldn't, go with him then. So when he brought that up, he's like, we should do it. And I was like, yeah. And then he's like, really? I was just kidding. But needless to say, we ended up doing it like a week or so later. And I loved it. Like I had the best time. I mean, it was challenging, but I loved it. And then like the next morning, we woke up and he's like, oh, I'm so sore. And I'm like, yeah, but that was awesome. Like I want to do it again. And he looked at me like, are you crazy?
Oh,
And I was just like, no, but I guess one of the things I want to say about that whole experience, it's like, depending on how fast you hike, it's 7 or 8 hours. It's like a 14-mile round trip, and there's some elevation. But as we were going up, I saw this girl, like probably about my age, I guess, and she was hiking by herself. And I remember thinking, like, wow, like that's badass. Like I want to be like her, and I don't know, it just kind of lit something in me. And so, yeah, when I wanted to go and do it again, I couldn't find anyone to go with me. Like my husband's like, well, don't ask me, I'm not going again. And like either people like that I knew were like, I wouldn't be able to, keep up with you, or our schedules didn't mesh. And so finally I was just like, you know what? It's a fairly popular trail. I'm just going to go do it myself. And I did. And kind of the rest is history. Like found some like hiking groups and did a lot of hiking by myself before then until I kind of learned, but that was back in 2013 and I've been kind of hiking ever since.
That's
So
so cool. That's so cool. And your story really resonates with me about how you say you're from California, but you've been in Utah for so long that at this point, I'm guessing you just tell people that you're from Utah.
yeah,
And I felt the same way because I used to have such a strong identity as being someone from Pittsburgh, a Pittsburgher. Like that
yes,
city knows how to like really have hometown pride. And
yeah,
then my husband got this dream job opportunity to move to New York City, something that I like most people visited New York City once and was like, this is really cool, but I don't want to live here. Like, how do people do that? And then we're just like, what the hell? Let's go. And like you said, the rest is history because
mhm,
there's just something that felt so right about living there.
yes,
And the fact that when I moved to New York City, I originally didn't recognize that you can drive 40 minutes and you're at the ocean. There's beaches, there's surfing, and you drive two
yeah,
hours, there's Hunter Mountain, and there's the Catskills, and like you're at a really centralized location and just loving and feeling like this is where I belong. So I
that's
super duper feel
awesome.
that. But
Yeah,
on my end, like I said, hiking isn't innate to me. And the the closest I could like guess, like hiking just sounds like you're taking a really long walk up a hill and eventually
yeah.
back down. Is that really like the reduced boiled down explanation of what hiking is?
That's so funny you say that. I guess I would used to think that, but depending on, the locations or the destinations that you visit, I think it can be so much more than that. And it's not even necessarily an uphill, like depending on where you go, some of the national parks or even state parks, like for example, in Utah, we have the mountains here, and that's where kind of I'm at. But if you drive, 2, 3 hours down south, or then you have like the desert and the red rocks, and that's actually where I was this weekend. I mean, we did some mountains too, but there's just these, it's like this big playground, where there's just rocks you can climb on and caves and things that you can explore. And so to me, that's, I don't know, I guess I consider that still hiking a little bit. So I just think, as I've expanded my repertoire, I guess, of different types of hikes, yeah, it's so much more than, just going up and then coming down, depending on the destination.
Okay. So that makes a little bit more sense. So hiking is like a bigger term for just exploring the outdoors, but
Yes.
not just like stopping and being in one place
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah.
So you started talking about destinations, and that was something I wanted to get into. So let's kind of adjust a little bit and talk about how to choose a destination to bring your kids. And I guess there's a different answer for slinging your babies versus bringing your
Yes.
teenagers.
Yes. No, that's perfect. So I would say there's a few factors, when it comes to choosing the destination, but especially when it comes to kids, because that does, change things. If I'm planning a hike for just me, it's going to be a lot different than planning a hike with my kids, or especially if you're carrying your baby, on a pack or whatever. So the first thing I would say is, choose something fun. And that can be a variety of things depending on like the time of year, or, where you live, but make it something fun. And usually, I guess if it's in the summertime or even fall, spring, like that can include some type of water. I feel like kids and water just, they go well together. So whether that's like waterfalls or, rivers, lakes, streams, things like that, where they can play in, they can get wet. It's just, especially in the summer, if it's hot, they can cool off.
Yeah.
So I feel like, water's always a win. But like, let's say maybe it's too cold for the water or whatever. There's just places where they can explore. So like I kind of mentioned, we have the mountains here, in this part of Utah, but then you also have, down south, you have like the red rocks and the desert. So for example, there's Goblin Valley State Park, where they have these, they're called hoodoos, but they're basically these rock stacks. And you can just run and explore and climb and just be a kid. You can be a big kid, you can be a small kid, but it doesn't necessarily have to be something totally like that, but just where there's just places for them to be a kid and explore. So whether that destination is water, whether that's just, maybe a fun place to have a good view at the top, or again, caves or wildlife, or just a pretty view to take it in. But I think, destination's probably one of the most important things to consider, just because if it's boring or you're kind of in it for the exercise, that's not going to maybe resonate well with your kids. You want to make sure the destination is something that they're going to enjoy.
That's really interesting that you brought up that they're going to enjoy. So how long, should you plan to be out with little kids? There's a lot of moms in this group that have very little kids or toddlers that just they want to get out of the house. We live in shoeboxes in New York City, and getting them outside sounds great, but what if we get there and they're like, where's my tablet? What can we do? What can we do to make sure that they stay entertained? Aside from the water, and how much time can we expect, or how do you plan in case they're like, this sucks, I want to go home?
Yeah. So I would say definitely, you brought up a good point of, if you have, young kids, probably, start with some shorter hikes, or, things that are, how to put this? It's not too far back to the car. If something were to go wrong, or they get tired, or, they kind of start to have a meltdown, it's not like you have to hike 2 hours back, to get there. So I would say start with, things that are shorter. There's some places up here in the mountains even where they're like, tours, kind of like walking tours where, it's kind of like a nature bridge, and then you stop at different stations, and they have check out, they may have descriptions on some of the trees or the flowers or things, but it's just maybe half a mile of a loop, where it's really easy. It's very kid friendly. So I'd say, if you're not used to hiking a lot, start with something like that. Do your research, see if there's just areas, you can talk it up to be a big hike, but it could just be like this walk around, a part of the forest or whatever. I'm sorry, my brain tends to wander, but that's kind of part of what you asked, right? As far as for the little kids, or knowing how long.
Yeah. And I like the idea that it's either a loop or it's not a very far distance that you're hiking. That way, you said, you're not stuck at the top of a mountain with a very unpleasant child, but making it being able to slow down and being like, all right, in 100 yards, there's this one station, or having that guided tour where somebody who knows what they're talking about. That's one of my favorite things to do when I'm going to visit a city, because we made this mistake before. We went to New Orleans and we walked around all day, but all the walking tours were in the evening, and we were just so wiped out that we never got to actually learn what we were staring at.
Yes.
And kind of taking that same idea and looking for guided tours that are catered towards children, so they can kind of lend a hand. That way we don't have to be the tour guide and the entertainment, and probably the camel too, holding all of the toys and supplies and food.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I was going to say too, the more you do it, and the more you kind of get out, and you kind of get an idea what your kids can handle, kind of getting an idea okay, what's their limit, or, what do they, then you can try to gradually make it longer, or, do a little bit harder, just we would condition ourselves for, you're training for your marathon or whatever. Hiking's kind of the same thing, even with little kids. If they're not used to it, you start out small and just kind of get a feel for how they do in that environment. And then you kind of learn, and you can go for a little bit longer, or, explore other places. But I think, especially with little kids, just start small, simple.
Start small. That's the life lesson for us, right?
Yeah, seriously.
Okay, so we're starting small. Let's talk a little bit about how we can keep our kids safe, keep ourselves safe. I'm thinking my initial thoughts are like, I don't want to be covered in ticks. I don't want to attract bears with whatever I'm snacking on. I don't want to break my ankle. Like, what kind of safety tips do you want to share with us? And you also wanted to talk about the leave no trace uh, principle, or
Yeah.
yeah.
No, this is a really good one. And I would probably say that the number one thing you can do, to keep yourself safe and your kids safe is to do your research ahead of time. So, especially if it's an area that you haven't been to before and you're kind of trying to explore new places to get more ideas and where to go, is do your research ahead of time. And that is going to include like not only researching like where you're going, the route, some of the options and things like that, but also like any regulations in the area, wildlife. There's always going to be specific things, specific to the area that you're visiting. So familiarize yourself. Are you going to be in bear country? Are you going to be in, things like that? And then, so that would probably be the first thing is, yeah, just familiarizing yourself with the area, knowing that type of thing. And then as far as, be prepared, that's part of the leave no trace, which I'll get into briefly, but just kind of be prepared for anything. And obviously this is going to depend on, the length of the hike. So if you have little kids and you're not going far from the car, you don't have to have like your 10 essentials, with you, like emergency everything, but just be prepared. If you're more prepared, it's going to make the experience more pleasant. So like, for example, this last weekend when I was on a hiking trip, there was like a 20% chance of thunder showers before 9 a.m. But because of like the barometric pressure, whatever, the weather was very unpredictable. So we prepared for both hot and cold, but guess what? We were in hail and, pouring rain, and it wasn't miserable because we were prepared for that. So, even if you are going someplace close, just be prepared. If it gets chilly or whatever, have, a sweatshirt or layers or things for them to do. But I'd say as far as like the safety goes, is just, yeah, preparedness is kind of everything. And I don't know, we can come back to as far as how much preparedness, I guess, if you want to really get into that. But, if we kind of bridge over into the leave no trace principles, because that's the number. Go ahead. I can tell you about this.
Yeah. So the only thing the one thing that came to mind as you were talking, especially, so first of all, I love the preparedness mentality. My whole coaching philosophy is taking a proactive approach, and this just falls right in line with it. If you're prepared for everything, nothing's going to surprise you and disappoint you.
Yes.
And like, I love the rain. My daughter loves playing in puddles, but if she's wearing like sneakers that aren't waterproof and I don't have any kind of rain protection, I'm going to be miserable.
Yes.
So that's awesome. But how do I know, like, is there an amount of just stuff? I feel like I keep adding, as we keep talking, I keep thinking I keep adding on the amount of weight I'm going to be schlepping. And is there some like an expected amount of like what I should be carrying with me? Do you love a particular like backpack or anything?
Yeah.
What can we give our kids to carry? I like giving
Yeah.
them stuff to do and stuff to look after.
That's so good. Yeah. So I would say, as far as carrying stuff, I would encourage you to have, a backpack for your kids. It doesn't even have to be like an official backpacking backpack. It can be, whatever little backpack they want to carry. And I think that does a couple of things. It's going to make your life easier, because if they're carrying like their own little treats and snacks themselves, they can get in that when they want to, instead of every 5 minutes, Mom, I'm hungry, or Mom, I'm thirsty. And then you have to stop, take your backpack off and, give them their treats. And especially if you're with multiple, kids, if they're each have their own backpacks where they carry their snacks, their own drinks. It's going to make your life so much easier and enjoyable. And then they can decide, they have their snacks, they can eat what they want, but it also teaches them to be prepared. They're not always relying on mom or dad. I think so. That's kind of a teaching them, responsibility at the same time, kind of giving them that first taste of anyways. But as far as backpacks, there's lots of different brands, but Osprey is a good, I would say either go online or depending, we have a couple of REIs here, and that's to me, that's my Disneyland. It's so fun. You can get, my kids are always like, Mom, we're not going to go in there again, are we? Because I will just spend hours. But maybe take your kids in there, and you can try on some different backpacks and just see what there's, is out there and things like that, because they have some really nice themes. But again, for the littler hikes, especially if you're starting small, any backpack will do. But I would say I would definitely encourage your kids to have their own, so they could have maybe even a sweatshirt, if it gets cold, and their snacks. And then as far as, kind of maybe what to carry, especially kind of maybe the minimal things just on the safety side is, well, here's a cool thing. A lot, and I guess I should have had some of my gear up here with me, but on the backpacking backpacks, there's actually a whistle that's built into the strap. So if you got in trouble or you had an emergency, you can blow that whistle to alert others in the area or whatever. But so, a whistle is always, especially for little kids, they could wear a whistle around their neck or have one, because if they did get lost, they could blow the whistle and you could find them easier that way. But I would say definitely just as far as minimums to have, depending on how they're dressed already for the weather, if it's cool out, if it's warm outside, always have maybe even those ponchos, or a plastic trash bag in case it rains. You can put that over your head. It provides that, keeps things, from getting wet. A basic first aid kit, whistle, basic first aid kit, plenty of water, and then, water would be more important than the snacks, I would say. Water's going to be your number one thing. And then I guess last but not least, and this may be kind of overkill again if you're just going on smaller hikes with the kids, but the longer the hike, the more you start to explore either a map or some type of GPS. That's kind of really important, because you want to be able to, if you took a wrong turn, it's easy to get lost, especially if you're not in a familiar area. So some type of way to, be able to figure out where you are and follow that first aid kit, whistle, water, kind of just bare minimums. Do I have any on me? No, they make these emergency Mylar blankets that literally fit in something like this big. And so if you did get caught in some rain or it got chilly, bring out that Mylar, you're going to be reflecting everything because they're great, but those are lightweight. It's kind of a really good, nice piece of emergency, something to have in your pack.
Oh, I like that. It's like the blanket you get either at the beginning or the end of a race.
Yes.
Like a space blanket.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I was really hoping that you brought up a map as the last thing, because we don't use them anymore.
Right.
And
right.
What a great opportunity to show kids and to teach them how to read a map, or for you to start remembering how to read.
Yes.
Because there's been countless times where my husband and I got lost because we were trying to figure out using Google Maps where the heck we were, and taking the wrong turn and just being like, why is this so hard?
Absolutely.
But yeah, just remembering or learning or taking a REI has classes, I think.
They do.
On how to basic compass reading,
yes,
and map reading and preparedness and stuff. So that's really cool. And I love that it's lightweight, and the fact that we can give our kids their water bottles, because water gets heavy if you're
it does.
all of it for
does.
everybody. So you're starting to wander into the leave no trace principle. So let's touch on that for a minute.
Perfect. And I will be brief on these. We'll just kind of, there's seven, leave no trace principles. But if anyone wants to explore, more or learn more about them, if you just Google, leave no trace principles, you'll get plenty of, more in-depth information that way. But the first one is plan and prepare. And that kind of, we covered a lot of that already, just knowing your destination, knowing the weather, knowing certain regulations that are specific to the area. One thing I didn't mention, but like for here example, where we are in the mountains, I hike year round. And part of that in the wintertime is being aware of like avalanche, danger and things like that. So I'm not going to have to worry about that in the summertime, but I may have to worry about flash floods. So that all that preparedness is going to be specific to, the weather, to the area that you're at. So just familiarize yourself with wherever that you're going and be aware of that. The second one is going to be, travel and camp on durable surfaces. So, stay on the trails. If you're going to camp or you're going to do like, even like that would be going into a wormhole. So I'm just going to say, stay on the trail, camp and travel on durable surfaces. And a lot of times the places that you go, there'll be signs or, you can get information at the ranger station, on what that is. So like, for example, where I was this last weekend, there, we're in the desert, there's sand, there's what they call this crypto soil, which they're just microorganisms that grow in the soil, and it takes like 300 years for them to grow. And it's partly to help prevent erosion. It helps, prevent erosion so the plants can grow that are native to that area, which in turn provides shade. It provides food for some of the animals there. If you step on that cryptic biotic soil, you've destroyed 300 years worth of growth. So they tell you either stay on the rocks, because again, there's lots of rocks, or you walk in the washes, where the water tends to run and so that's a perfect example right there of, staying on the trail. If you're in the forest or whatever, if people are going all different directions and they're not staying on the trail, kind of the same thing. It can cause erosion. It can cause, damage to the environment. So just be aware, but, stay on the trail as much as you can. Number 3, dispose of waste properly. I think that kind of goes without is a given, pack out your trash. That's one thing I always carry in my backpack is usually a gallon size Ziploc bag. So any packaging from food wrappers or, whatever that goes in that Ziploc bag, because there's not trash cans normally, in the forest, and you pack that trash out. Yeah. That includes, toilet paper, things like that. If you think about it, if we all just used the bathroom wherever and used toilet paper and just left it there, or don't, bury it properly, that's kind of gross. It ruins the experience for everyone. So dispose of waste properly is number 3. And number 4 would be just leave what you find. So as tempting as it can be to kind of collect souvenirs and things like that, just take it with pictures, capture it with your camera, leave the rocks and the flowers and everything that you find there for others to enjoy. Number 5, if you're camping or, whatever, is minimize the impact of campfire. So, keep the fires in the fire rings that are already established. Number 6 is respect wildlife. So, don't feed the animals. If you see animals, keep your distance. And then number 7, one more thing with that, I guess, is also, keep in mind when we go to these places, that's their home. So, we want to be respectful and not have loud music or be shouting at them. We're just trying to be respectful of them. And then last one, number 7, is just be considerate of other visitors. So that might mean limiting your group size. One of my pet peeves is, going on some of these trails and you have a group of like 20 people and you're trying to, maneuver. So break into smaller groups. Be considerate, just again, how loud you're talking. And some of these canyons and stuff that we have in Utah, that's part of the rules is using soft voices. If you're different people go out in nature for different reasons. And if you're kind of there to just take in the scenery and enjoy nature. And then you have people being really loud and obnoxious or playing music. That's a big one. That's kind of a no-no when it comes to etiquette of outdoors, is just be considerate of other visitors. And if you have, I'm a big hiker with my dog. If you have, pets or whatever, manage your pets, and just common courtesy basically. But there you go. Those are kind of the 7 leave no trace principles that I encourage everyone to familiarize with and know and practice.
I feel like first of all, there's just so many things I want to go back to. First of all, I feel like leave no trace could apply anywhere you go.
It does.
From littering, it keeps you aware of your surroundings, it keeps you from being an obnoxious person.
Yes.
That's so cool, and I want to put that on a poster and remember it forever. But you brought up leaving the don't take souvenirs, and when I was in India with for a yoga teacher training, which is, by the way, one of my favorite, if not my favorite place in the world.
Wow.
I was at the beach and I found like a seashell or something. And a friend of mine who's from Australia brought up that if everybody took one seashell from where they were at, they would completely mess up the entire ecosystem, because you're taking things that are native to that part of the ocean and the beach and relocating it somewhere else, or just simply taking it away. And I remembered that whenever my daughter started loving, her favorite thing to do at the beach is pick up seashells. And
Yes.
my husband didn't think anything of it, but I was like, okay, you can pick up the seashells, put them in your bucket, but at the end of our, day at the beach, we're going to put them back. And
Yes.
he was like, well, I don't understand. And I explained that. And it's something that like you really don't think about as a single person, but how it adds up. And similarly, being a guest in, we're a guest in other people's homes where they live. So not littering in the woods, and not being loud and obnoxious, not screaming at the top of your lungs, and
Yes.
playing music. And this is things that's like, you don't think about maybe initially, but once you
Right.
realize that what you're doing is making an impact on where you live, on where you're staying, it's I think a really nice lesson to teach your kids, but also a nice thing to just remember that like we're sharing all of this.
Yes.
So I think the leave no trace principle is really beautiful, and it aligns perfectly with how to live sustainably healthy, which is the point and purpose of this conversation. So thank you for exploring that. We talked a lot about making the experience enjoyable for everybody and preparing ourselves and our kids. Was there anything else that you wanted to bring up with those 2 subjects before we continue on and wrap up?
Yeah, I think probably, if we go back to how to make the experience enjoyable, I'll add a few more things to that, because I think that's huge, especially when you have the littles, well, and even teenagers, it applies too. But yeah, there's a few things that I wanted to touch on there. And we kind of touched on a little bit, but, bringing their favorite treats or snacks, and having them carry that's always going to make the experience, fun, or more enjoyable for them. Couple other ideas or suggestions that I had is, let them bring a friend. If you have little kids, then maybe go with another mom and kids, so they have other kids to kind of play with and keep their mind, especially as my kids got, a little older, and we may do some of the not super hard, but a little bit more challenging things. If they had other kids, it kind of took their mind off, oh, we're going up a steep hill or whatever. So bring a friend. Back to kind of the leave no trace thing, even like they can see lots of different things and rocks and flowers and wildlife, but let them take pictures, if they're using your camera, or, back in the day, we used to have those disposable, cameras.
Bring back disposable.
Exactly. And they could, take lots of pictures. My daughter loved that. Take frequent breaks, especially again, as you're going on a little bit longer, or even if they're short hikes, it's sometimes, I think, hard for us as adults, especially if you're thinking about hiking as exercise. We just want to go, 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 go. And I would forget that when my kids were little. And, so it's like, it's okay to stop, every 10 minutes or whatever, and take a break. It's going to make it a lot more enjoyable. That's something I kind of learned the hard way, is to take those frequent breaks. And then another thing, just again, when they do start to get older and old enough, or you want to start, doing maybe a little bit longer hikes, play games, ask questions with them. The games can be like, would you rather? I did that with my daughter all the time. My daughter is the queen of complaining. I'm tired, I'm hot, how much longer? And so we would play games and I would ask her questions. Like, let's count how many bugs or whatever, deer, just, you can be so creative. But if I kept her distracted and kept her talking about things, I would ask her like, well, what's your favorite book, or what's your favorite movie, or, things like that. She would kind of forget that we were going up a hill and she would talk. And then it's like bonding too, that's time with your kids that you may not have these conversations that, so those were the things. Oh, couple more, sorry, is make sure they have comfortable shoes. If they're, again, depending on the length of the hike, that's my daughter, when she was like 12, wore Converse, up this big mountain. And oh my gosh, talk about complaining. And I didn't even think to really talk to her too much. I just figured she's 12, she would know we're going hiking, she should wear comfortable shoes. And to her, Converse were comfortable shoes. And yeah, so just make sure that type of stuff. And then I guess last but not least is, if it's a short hike, make it a picnic, bring a picnic to have, or, at the end of the hike, go out for ice cream or do Slurpees. Or if it's in the wintertime, maybe you go for hot chocolate or something, just so they're kind of associating, especially if it was a little challenging for them, they're going to remember kind of the fun things and not like, oh, that was really hard. So there we go.
That sounds like I want to go hiking now. Like, this sounds like there's so many ways to make this special. And I mean, we didn't really go into this, but talking about like how, having spent the last year, well, everybody knows how we spent the last year, but being able to reintroduce them to nature and not a screen, and being able to just recognize how awesome being outside and moving around and enjoying our company without distractions or headphones or whatever can be. And I think that's so valuable. So for anybody who is listening, if you have either a great story about hiking with your family, or when you grew up, if you have a really great place that you love to take your kids hiking, please post it in the comments. And also, Tiffany now is in, she's a member in the Strong as a Mother, Happy and Healthy Living Facebook group. So you can always tag her if you have extra questions. So to kind of wrap up the conversation, even though I could keep talking forever, I feel about this, and I want to come visit you in Utah.
Yes, please do. And I'll come visit you.
Oh yeah, please. Well, give us a couple months. give New York a couple more months. What do you think is the one first step, one thing a mom listening can do to start applying all the stuff that we talked about today with hiking with our kids?
Yeah, such a great question. I would say just start making a list of potential destinations, and it could be like literally 10 miles from where you live. It could be, if you want to make it like more of a bigger trip, but just simply start making a list of, like kind of like a brain dump. Doesn't mean you'll go there, but just kind of create like a master list, whether it's on your notes in your phone or in a notebook or something, and just start making those lists of things, of destinations that you think would be fun. It could be local areas, it could be a little bit further, but I would say that would be the first step. And then the more you start thinking about it, you can choose one of those destinations and then kind of start implementing some of the things we talked about. But just number one is just start making a list of places that you think would be fun to take your kids to explore. And that's kind of the first thing. And then everything else can kind of fall into place. But that would probably be my number one tip or advice to start with.
I think that's rock solid advice, because personally I am a firm believer, I'm a strong believer in the law of attraction. So whatever it is that you put out into the universe, that's what you're going to start being drawn towards. So if you are somebody who's like, I want to go hiking, and then you just start Googling places, or you start, I found a lot of, I'm on a hiking with dogs Facebook
Yes,
group. Are you in that one too?
I'm in
Maybe.
so many. Yeah, but yes, absolutely. I am. Yeah.
There's a Hiking Long Island Facebook group that I'm a part of, and they keep posting there's amazing waterfalls of Long Island and like
Yes.
Connecticut, that in Rhode Island, just all these different, parts of that part of the world that you
Hmm.
can just go and just ask questions, ask advice. What's a
Yes.
great place for, a 2-hour adventure with my 5-year-old?
Absolutely.
There's so many more resources beyond just Googling, that you can
Yes.
just start being part of the communities. And, this aligns with becoming more like the people who you're surrounded with, right?
Hmm.
So if you want to start to be somebody who wants to go hiking and live in that whole REI, I'm sure REI has plenty of Facebook groups.
Yes.
Start hanging around those kind of people. You're those
Yeah.
kind of people. There's Facebook groups of those kind of people. I'm sure there's
Hmm.
moms who hike. I'm sure there's parenting hiking groups.
Yes.
Obviously, you and I live on Facebook, so that's where my brain goes first.
Yeah.
But just starting to connect with the people that you want to become.
Hmm.
So I love that. I love the put it on paper or on an app. And I want to, first of all, I want to thank you for
Oh,
hanging out with me this morning. And how I want to ask, how can people get in touch with you, and what is your coaching that you do?
yeah. No, thanks. First of all, this has been so much fun for me. So thank you for having me because, you can tell I get excited about, hiking. It's definitely a big part of my life, and I can't imagine my life without it. So I love it. So yeah, so thank you for letting me talk about something I'm so passionate about. But yeah, as far as my coaching, I think we're pretty similar. I work with moms primarily; those are my clients, and the moms that I work with, it's usually weight loss. So it's usually yeah, moms who want to lose weight and who struggle a lot of times with that emotional, that stress eating. So my coaching, program kind of encompasses a big mindset, is a big part of that, in addition to, the nutrition and fitness. But I also have a free Facebook group called Club Supermom. And that's kind of my group where I, do a lot of the stuff there. But yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell. So, people, and like I said, I'm now that I'm in your group, I'm excited to just, yeah, get to meet other moms and that way. But yeah, I think that's kind of it in a nutshell.
That's awesome. And we'll put the link to your Facebook group
Oh
in
yeah.
our group. I know I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but if I can help facilitate connecting somebody with the coach that they're looking for, then I still feel like I've done my job. So
Yes,
I
I'm all about
absolutely
that.
love that there's coaches who take care of moms, because we need taken care of just as much as
We
we
do.
take care of everybody else.
Yeah.
So cheers to a wonderful morning chat.
Yes.
I'm so excited, and I'm going to follow up with our first hike once we get back to Astoria.
I would love that.
And yeah, this was a really great talk. I keep saying this, but this is usually about a 30-minute conversation. But whenever we're just elbow deep in really cool chats, it just keeps going and going, because I feel like there's so much valuable information. And
Yeah.
again, my goal is to help moms live a sustainable, healthy life, which includes appreciating and being equipped with the knowledge to actually enjoy going out and enjoying hiking in the outdoors. So
I love it.
thank you very much for coming onto the show today. Thank you to everybody who is listening. If you are in the group, please invite your other moms to come in. I can't wait to meet them. And every mom is welcome here. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe and like and comment, so I know that you want to keep getting all of this awesome content. So until next time, stay strong, stay caffeinated, and I will see you in the group. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thanks, Connie.